All right, so in the spirit of getting to know what other people do, our next up is the academic technologist. We have 4 of the fantastic academic technology staff here at the university is going to tell us about what they do, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So come on up, you folks, and yeah, let's get this party started.
Thanks, Marissa Brandt. Good morning, everybody. I'm Fandrey from CLA. I am joined with my colleagues, Kalli, Binkowski, CBS, from Coordinate Campus Duluth, Amanda Evans, and Keith Brown, who's the service owner in Academic Technology Support Services. Hello to the people who are streaming live. Ian, thank you very much for this invitation, Ian and the committee, to come and talk with you about what academic technology is. Oh, super. So I'm doing a little tap dance here right now. Academic technology encompasses so many different approaches and so many different roles here at the U, and the goal of this talk is to describe all those different flavors and the different types of activities that we and our colleagues engage in on a daily basis. I could take this moment to just echo the fact that I was so inspired by what Bernie said. He's such a great speaker. When he reminded us this morning about the fact that we really are here to improve the human condition. When I was listening to that, I was just like, thank you for that beautiful reminder. Yep, and the gift of slides. Yes, thank you, Ian. Yeah, so you're all wondering what an academic technologist does. I think this clicker doesn't work. I invite you to think about what education has looked like for us in the 20th century. We have a picture of a guy down in front in a lecture hall and a bunch of eyeballs looking up at him or looking down at him for the answers and for the information. But here's an early morning quiz or mid-morning quiz for you. Can you guess what pivotal event occurred August 6, 1991 that forever changed teaching and learning? Isn't this fun to shout this kind of thing out in a public forum? Thank you for your contribution, your bold contribution. We're looking for a different answer than the Iraq invasion. Holy buckets, that's a lovely idea. What we're looking for is first public access to the internet. And so what did that do for us in academic technology? Before ubiquitous access to information, students had to listen to the teacher. They had to go to the library to get answers. We called that the sage on the stage model of teaching. But now students have the answers to any questions they could dream of, and it becomes more about helping them cultivate skills to navigate all that information and that influx of information. So the role of teacher and learner actually changed, and we call it an opportunity for teachers and instructors to be a guide on the side. And yet, what's happened here? Is there seriously no image there? Here, what you could be seeing right now. What was that? Okay. Yeah, so what you could be seeing is the contrasting image that we have provided for you in this slide deck of the same type of thing with people wearing modern day clothes. Students still filing into lecture halls in many classrooms across the university, and still eyeballs. This is the best presentation we've ever given. So the idea is it's the same model, right? This kind of lecturing and looking to the front of the room for an instructor to have all the answers, that model. So we know that students learn best not from passive lecture hall activity, but from many opportunities, many and varied opportunities to engage with content. And that can look like active activities in the classroom, problem-based learning rather than rote memorization, collaboration and cooperation, rather than students working in isolation and trying to mitigate the content on their own. So we're back. So academic technology is at this intersection of teaching and technology, and it is, as Bernie said, getting technologists as close to the pedagogy as possible, and that's what we do every day. We help instructors incorporate new technologies into classrooms, and we support the development of digital skills and digital literacies that can make those integrations successful in classrooms. So in this talk, we will show you what some of this work looks like. We prepared about 20 minutes of material for you, and we will share about Kalli's going to talk about faculty support roles. I'm going to talk about instructional design. Keith is going to talk about emerging trends, and then Amanda is going to come in with a great story that integrates all three of those kinds of activities. So, Kalli, we'll talk about faculty support.
So imagine yourself as an instructor trying to go through a lecture, and all of this just happened to you, and you did not have a room full of technologists to help you. To say that we do faculty support actually is a huge part of our job. We have so many questions over the course of the day. Academic technologists, many of them spend a good portion of their day doing academic technology support, whether it's training on a new tool an instructor has never used, whether it's troubleshooting that tool that has just stopped working, or whether it's tweaking that tool, those settings, to try and get it to do something that it never really was quite built to do. We go to instructors where they are. And I do mean this by location. Of course, we help over the phone and we help over email. But we also, because of our ecosystem of academic technologists that we have around the university, we work in our local units and develop relationships with those faculty. So we will go to your office and help you troubleshoot your computer. We will go to your classroom and we will help you fix the computer in the classroom that isn't working the way it's supposed to. We will even go to your classroom with students and help your students use technology in ways they haven't used it before and be the support person in the room. So we do all of this kind of work, and it is difficult. Teaching itself is really difficult. It's more than just getting up there and being the sage on the stage. When we're doing academic technology support, we're actually doing more than just providing the support as well. There is another aspect to our job. We're not just asking, is this the right tool for the job the instructor wants to do? We often ask, is it the right job? Our academic technologists around the university have a huge variety of background, both educational and non-educational. And we use our experience to help instructors move their teaching towards a better educational experience here at the University of Minnesota. So that means we do a lot of little poking and prodding to get instructors to try some of the new educational tools, teaching practices, and that's what Anna's going to be talking about when she talks about instructional design. I'm going to focus a little bit more on the actual tools that we use. So, you probably heard of Canvas and Moodle. Oh wow, we put Canvas first. I don't think we're there yet. It's probably more Moodle Canvas right now. These are our learning management systems, or LMSs. And yes, a great portion of our work is in these tools, especially in Central. They do things like grade books, provide resources for students, a place for them, you know, the journal article you have to read, your syllabi, that kind of thing. But these tools also do things that we encourage instructors to use. Some things make them more efficient, like turning in assignments online and grading them online. There goes the paper, that helps. But it also can help with better teaching practices, getting students to work together in groups, using discussions or peer review, or perhaps having them work on, now see, I've already forgotten my other example, but it helps get these teaching practices in there, and it helps manage things like that. One more. I'm going to get back to API integrated tools. I'm going to go to Google. Google is another big part of what we do. And yes, students use it to do their assignments and turn them in. And yes, instructors use it to make content. But what is really the power of Google for us is the collaborative functions that it has. Working in groups is a huge teaching practice now. It's like a big deal. Get people together in groups and they will do better learning. And Google makes that possible, not just because you can all work on one document together, but using Hangout to talk to your friends and talk to your lab members and get all these things worked out. It's a really big part of what we do, and we help instructors implement that. Video. So it's become way too easy to make video. And of course, we will help you with the screencasting software and the editing software and the cameras and the microphones and all the rest of that. But it has turned out that our role as academic technologists is not really to teach you how to do that. It's way too easy to make a bad video. There's a ton of research out there now about what the characteristics of a good video are, and our job has become training faculty to make good educational videos that will actually be watched, that will actually help students learn, and to choose to make a video at the right time. So again, this is all about, again, not just using the tool and picking the right tool, but is it the right job you actually want to do? Oh, we have instructors using WebEx, speaking of video, using WebEx to collaborate with students that aren't even on campus. You know, to teach to students that aren't even here. That has also been a big change when it comes to the kind of teaching we can do now. So, educational software. So here's what we've learned. Everything can be educational software. So as an academic technologist, I have to know about everything. Okay, not really, but it comes down to that sometimes. Some of that technology is integrated to our learning management systems, as we show up here. But some of it is not. And when you realize the sheer number of things that are not, there's a huge number of things that we help faculty use, from publisher-based software that delivers quizzes to things actually set aside for educational software, like Quizlet to do quizzes, or VideoAnt to do interactive videos, or Chime-In to do in-class polling. But it goes worse than that, because there are software out there in every field, and that's what we teach. We prep students to become productive citizens, and they use software and all that. Somewhere, somebody is using that software in an educational setting, and now it becomes our job to make sure that it's continuing to work. And just to add a little end note there is hardware too. We have some locals that support smartboards. We have locals that support swivel robotic video cameras. We use iClickers in some cases. So this is a very short list of a very huge amount of things. And of course, the huge amount of things is always growing. And Keith will be talking to you a little bit about how we incorporate or keep our eye on some of those emerging technologies as well. So it's kind of important at this point that I stop and say we don't know all of this. We depend on this ecosystem that we have at the University of Minnesota around technology and even around other things. I am constantly contacting Anne, because I know Anne quite well, and like, is anybody in your college using this? I don't know what this is. We are using each other. We are using you out there in other fields to get these things to work. Other tech people. Then because of the teaching part of it, we're talking to libraries about reserves, about video stuff. We're talking to computer labs. We're running virtual labs. We're running virtual desktops. We're training. We're like, please, you got to get me some instructions so my instructors actually know how to close out a semester in Canvas. We're worrying about usability. Can our students actually use this technology without it detracting from the learning experience? Disability Resource Center, we are very much focusing on, is what we're creating accessible to all learners like it should be? It is a huge job. And Amanda's going to share with us an experience of how you kind of incorporate all that together to get something done. So faculty support is what we do, and it's a really huge job, but there's so much more other aspects of it, and that's where Anne comes in.
That was an expert transition, Kalli. Instructional design is the discipline of creating educational materials and experiences, and then helping make sure that those materials and experiences align with the instructor's stated learning outcomes. I'm going to breeze through this section so that we have time for the rest of our program. But I do want to tell you that that can mean anything from updating a course website, Canvas or Moodle like Kalli was talking about, to actually working with an instructor to create a new assignment and switch out an academic paper, for example. And at an higher ed institution like this, we always start with a conversation with the instructor. We're asking them contextual questions about the level of their learners, about what part of the semester it is, what they're trying to accomplish, and trying to fit the instructional design to make sure that it works with that context. They might say to us, I want to create a video, and we might say, we might probe that a little bit. And ask them what they really want to do. This is Bloom's taxonomy. It's one of the tools and frameworks that we use when we work with instructors. We want to, our idea is to help get people to do assignments that have students using higher order thinking skills. So we're trying to get assignments that move further up the taxonomy as opposed to just basic recall and understanding of information. Let's talk emerging trends with Keith Brown.
So like most of you in the audience here, we get to keep up with emerging trends. For a lot of us, that's one of the most exciting things. There's always something new happening in technology. For others of us, that can be a little bit daunting. So I'm just here to talk a little bit about how academic technologists deal with emerging trends that are coming out. And I did get the right one. Excellent. So there are two ways that we usually look at emerging trends. One is we actually go out and start looking ourselves. More often than not, though, we get something like this from a faculty member or a colleague saying, hey, I heard about this. Do you know anything about it? So when that happens, we oftentimes break it down into 3 different types of emerging technology. So 2 of them will probably be very familiar to you folks. The hardware, the things that are emerging in the hardware realm. There's also things that are emerging in the software realm. And the one that might be a little more specific to academic technologists is what are trends that are emerging in the teaching and learning realm. And that's actually the one that helps guide us when we're trying to figure out which ones of these new technologies or hardware pieces might actually be valuable for folks in the teaching and learning scenario. So let's say 10 or 15 years ago, virtual reality was still around. There were folks who could use this, but it required a humongous room. It required a ton of technology, people to actually run the technology for them, and very few applications that oftentimes they would have to be custom built to meet their specific needs. Well, we fast forward to today, and now we see that hardware is actually becoming, virtual reality hardware is becoming much more available to the consumers. Folks have it using with their phones. The new PlayStation 4 has a virtual reality headset that goes with it, all those kinds of things. So as it starts becoming more available, we're taking another look at it now. Is this something, are there teaching and learning needs that this can meet? Are there things that faculty members need to do or want their students to do that they currently can't, that this type of technology would actually help us do? So when we do that, if we find out that yes, it does have something that it can do, there are 2 more questions we usually ask. What is the learning curve? Is it realistic to have a faculty member actually go into a classroom and use this, or is it going to completely derail their class? And second, what is the price? Is this something that's realistic to get in a lot of people's hands? How realistic is it for us to use it in the classroom itself? So we ask a lot of those same questions when we start looking at emerging trends in software. And there actually is an image here, and it looks like I've fallen victim to the same thing. There's a super cool little image that I found, and it says that 2017 is the age of intelligence, or the year of intelligence. So they're referencing artificial intelligence. Yes, it makes you wonder what the other years were. Maybe we're just running smart, I'm not sure. But artificial intelligence is not a new thing. It's been around for quite some time, but it is something that is gaining speed again. And for us in the teaching and learning world, we're trying to see, are we getting to the point now that we can make it easier for faculty members to create very customized education for each student. So can I actually set up something so that Kalli, when she works through it, gets the content that she needs versus me, who maybe needs some remediation in a couple of areas, it gets that information before I move on to this high-end stuff that Kalli's able to do. So we're looking at what different types of technology are out there, what are the new things they're making available to us, what will the faculty members need, really looking at it through that lens. And as Kalli mentioned earlier, we don't always just look in the educational software. She had a great example of Google, how that really has changed a lot of the ways in which we have students work together and things like that. Though Google does have an educational arm, it's definitely not an educational software company. So we try to make sure we look wide when we're doing this type of surveying of the emerging technology that's available. And then the final one, hey, there's something there, excellent. The emerging trends in teaching and learning. You can see there are quite a few of them up here. Hopefully some of them look familiar. I was going to give a quick example on flipped instruction. So just in case anyone doesn't know what flipped instruction is, in a nutshell, it's trying to take all the stuff that a faculty member used to do when they were lecturing and make that available to the students beforehand so they can wrestle with that content a little bit and then come and use the classroom time very effectively. So you can have deeper discussions with a world's expert who's actually leading that rather than just have them lecture at you, maybe go through case studies, that kind of thing. So what we found was video is the way that a lot of faculty members wanted to be able to get that content across, because then it wasn't just reading a book, they could still explain it, they could do those types of things. So as Kalli mentioned, that brought us to the point of, okay, so how do we make an effective educational video? But then it also led us to a couple other things. How do we, what is a nice delivery platform? How do we make sure we get this out to students? What if they're using mobile? What if they're using a desktop? All those kinds of things. So trying to make sure we found the right delivery method. And then also on the teaching and learning side, how do we know if they're getting the content? So one of the things we've taken away from a faculty member at that point is, I can't look at this audience and see no one's paying attention or everyone's really engaged. So we don't have any idea as the faculty member once that goes online whether or not the students are getting the content. So we were investigating, can we have in-video quizzes and little things like that so the students get a better idea of whether or not they're getting the content, but it could also provide some insight to those faculty members. It looks like everybody's having trouble in these couple of areas. Either I'm not explaining it well enough, or maybe there's something incorrect in there. So those are just a couple of examples of how we might use some of these emerging trends. So we look at it through, at least in my mind, others on the panel might think differently, but really sort of hardware, software. But the big one is the teaching and learning. What are the new trends that are coming up that are creating new demands, new things that we need to be able to do and help faculty members do either more efficiently or more effectively? So at that point, I am going to turn it over to my colleague, Amanda, and she is going to give us an example.
All right, so I'm going to spend the last few minutes here kind of going quickly through an example that ties this all together, and then hopefully have a couple minutes for questions and answers. So this example will work through these three areas and a couple others as well, because these are just three of the different areas of academic technology, and of course there's more as well. So a common thing that faculty will come to us with is, my students are disengaged. Maybe they're not coming to class. Maybe they're not prepared for class when they do show up. So this example here is a GIS course, where on the left was the syllabus that the faculty members started with in the past. They have a lot of exams, lecture, and some individual lab exercises. And we worked with the faculty member to address the disengagement and to address the lack of preparedness from the students' end. And what we did is we helped them create measurable course objectives that move further up Bloom's taxonomy. So the students are creating, they're analyzing, they're examining, and versus recall and understanding through exams. And so we also, so that was the flipping of the curriculum. We also hybridized the course, which is a reduction in seat time. So instead of the students meeting in class multiple times during the week, they meet in a lab for a longer time period, and they have an optional lab on Monday with the instructor where they can get hands-on personalized help. And so the students do the majority of the work that may have occurred in the other classes in previous semesters online. And so they're required to work through these adaptive learning pathways to reach mastery. They have to come to class with that completed, and in some cases, the completion of those activities releases the data sets they would use in class. So they have to kind of work through that to come to class, to then take it to the next step, and the faculty member is there to help work them through that with their peers. And so we wanted to create more authentic learning activities for the students, both online and in the classroom, and that had real-world relevance. I don't know too many GIS professionals that are taking exams on a daily basis. And so we wanted the students, if they're going to go into that field, to have more examples and more experiences in the types of work that those professionals would do. And then they can also show employers the things they created in the lab versus I got to be on a test. So we've shown this a little bit. I'll just quickly go through that. In the past, this would be in class, they would be doing more of the remembering and the understanding through lecture and recall and exams. And so then they would send the students outside of class on their own to do the hard stuff. That's when they're creating, and that's when they're trying to work through their exercises potentially, and maybe they're doing that in isolation. And we want to flip that and make it so that what's happening in class is the creation, the evaluation, the analyzation with the faculty member there to guide them and help them and unstick them when they get stuck in the hard stuff. And the things that we were originally doing in the classroom, in the other model, is the stuff they're doing online. So they're building their base, and then they build on it when they come to class. So what does this look like? This faculty member was using Moodle for this class. Before they had the students coming multiple times during the week. There's a laundry list of some disconnected individual lab assignments to more of a group-based, team-based Moodle site that has the materials that I mentioned before that move further up the taxonomy. So how did we pull off this course design? Of course, it couldn't have been done by the faculty member themselves alone. We partnered together with a variety of different services and support groups, both on our campus and down here. So we had, ATSS was a huge player in this. We had Annette and Sarah and Jennifer from ATSS were very, very involved in this project. We had the One Help troubleshooting. We had our systems team creating the apps for you, VDI, and BYOD, so the virtualization of the software and the ability for students to do their lab work with software that they can get to anywhere, anytime on whatever device they have. And so that was a huge win for the students. The collegiate unit, IT support, myself involved with course consultations and technical and pedagogical reviews, and student support as well. So of course, there are both challenges and opportunities within this arena of work. These are many different things that we're kind of keeping our eye on. And we're not alone in some of these challenges. The number one key issue and opportunity across all institutional types, the Carnegie institutions, from the EDUCAUSE Learning Initiative in 2017 was faculty development. So it is something that we are all working through and working with. So I just want to end with a couple questions for you to just kind of think about. How can you partner with us to help advocate for and support the shifting role of the teacher within higher education? And how can we collectively design systems and teaching and learning environments that provide students with the ability to move at a pace that reflects their successful acquisition of knowledge and demonstration of skills, independent of time and space structures? Why do we have students coming to class on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 9 to 9:50 to be lectured at? When there's a variety of other teaching models out there, access to the internet, and different teaching methods that we know through research in learning sciences and brain and cognitive sciences have shown us. So that's what we have. If anybody has any questions, I think we have about 5 minutes, maybe. Doug?
People on the staff perform the academic technologist function across the city?
How many AT staff are there? Repeat the question for online. So the question was how many academic technology staff are at the University of Minnesota? Anybody, anybody? I do not have that answer.
So, in my opinion, it's a loaded question. It depends on whether or not you're talking about how many people have the academic technologist role or providing that function. There are a lot of people at the university who provide academic technology help that are not actually classified as an academic technologist. I think if you look at, I don't know the specific numbers, but I think it's somewhere between 30 and 50 on the academic technology side that are actually classified as that. But there are people throughout all the colleges who help with a lot of different things that are fall within our bailiwick as well, but they may have other duties as in addition to that.
Other questions? Yep.
Just think about it, it makes a lot of sense that academic technology may help the professor with their laptop or desktop because they might have a relationship with it. Where does the support of like a desktop support go versus an academic technology? You know, demarcation lines.
Yep. Do you want to repeat that?
So the question was, let me try and repeat this. It was, how does like desktop support and academic technologists, kind of where is the dividing line? Is that sort of what you're asking? Okay. Oddly enough, we use it as our in. We use this all the time. I mean, our goal really is to try and improve the teaching practices around the University of Minnesota. And we often use technology as our sneaky little way to start talking about other things to do that. So we provide technology support when it will begin that relationship that allows us to get to the point where we can ask about how things are going in class and maybe suggest alternatives and that kind of thing. And then, of course, I hate to say it this way, but this is all me. I tend to think of myself as not the real technologist, so when it gets beyond me, then I call desktop support and they help me fix it. And we really depend on you guys to do that because I can't fix all that stuff.
Yeah, and just maybe a quick follow-up. I think we also think of it as we help faculty members use the technology. So like a software package on the machine, we're not the ones who are oftentimes installing it or making sure that it's running properly, but usually that divide oftentimes comes when it's time to utilize the software, like how are they actually going to use it in their daily practice and those kinds of things. That's where we oftentimes step in. And if the software itself is broken or not working properly, then we would work with the desktop support folks who are experts in that area.
Yeah, it's a great question. Definitely a challenge. I need to repeat the question, correct? So she was asking if you're gonna, the credit load and scheduling students Monday, Wednesday, Friday, how do you address that? How do you work towards that? Did I capture that correctly? Okay. So we take a look at our student credit hours and we say, okay, if there's 3 credits, and there's so many hours that you have applied to or associated with those credit hours, you then step back and say, okay, in about a week's time, how many hours does the student need to be engaged in this class? And what parts of that time is going to occur in the classroom and what's going to occur online? And we look at the class schedule that they currently have. And maybe for the next semester, we would say, do you think it's feasible that we would maybe remove the Monday? And maybe the Wednesday would become a longer day or a longer session, or it would stay the same time slot because of classroom scheduling. And so just Monday was dropped, maybe for that first semester, and they would work Wednesday and Thursday in class, making sure that the credit hour is still intact there and that the faculty contact time doesn't change. They're still involved in the class at a certain amount of time, but they shift that time across different days. So in this example that I had shared, the faculty member had the students working online from Thursday all the way through Tuesday. And she had touch points during those times, but their required class wasn't until Wednesday. But she had an optional lab on Monday that they could be a part of if they wanted to. And I do think there's some other faculty down here that are experimenting with this, where there is a large class of 300 some students, and they break it into 3 groups. And so the faculty members still scheduled Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but the students only come once a week. One group comes once a week, the other group comes another week, the other day, and you just split it across the 3 days. So the contact time stays the same, but the students can work through things and come to class just once versus 3. So that's one example of many different ways to kind of address that. But I know we're getting into break time, so kind of pass this back over.
Thank you so much. Can we get a round of applause for all of our academic technologists?